Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans. And you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Product by Design with Kyle and Eva. And today we have a special guest, David Broschinsky. I think I said it right. We practiced. I don't even think
10 out of 10.
Yeah, right. Maybe.
You got it. Perfect.
All right. Close. So we are excited today. Welcome. Yeah. So we'll introduce him and his background in just a second. But first off, how's everybody doing today?
I don't want to go first because mine's going to trump everyone's whatever updates you have. So how are you guys doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. We're going through a lot of changes at work, and I actually just got notified today that I'm going to be reporting directly to the senior VP of product now instead of up through a couple different methods. So this is the third boss I've had in 3 years now. So should be lots of fun. But I will be, and Kyle I think knows Mark, but yep. I'll be reporting directly to Mark McGee now at my work. So that was how my morning started, was him calling me up and saying, "Hey, I had to tell you this before we announced it to the company." I'm like, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate that."
Nice. That's good.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I think it's a great thing for the organization.
It is probably something that should have been a long time ago, but it reflective of, and we'll probably talk a little bit about this as we get into design teams and design organizations, but it's a good step as design kind of takes a bigger seat at the table.
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
Like just anytime when any design or UX people like get closer to the core of the business, I'm like, yeah, let's do this. Push everyone closer.
Exactly.
But yeah, that sounds like an exciting move. I almost forgot today is Friday. I'll tell you why I almost forgot in a second. But
I've thought it's been Friday a couple of days this week. So it was Tuesday. I thought it was Thursday, but I don't know why, but the days this week I've been absolutely confused on. That normally hasn't happened to me too much, but maybe it's finally catching up to me working from home and everything. But I thought a couple of days ago that it was Friday, and I was like, oh no, I forgot to do some stuff, and it's Friday already. Anyway, thought for several days that it was Friday multiple times. And so obviously it's super disappointing when you think it's Friday and it's not Friday. So that was a somewhat disappointing Tuesday for me.
This is the most relatable thing to just all people on this planet. So I support this sentiment.
Yeah.
But is it time for me to drop my big news?
What's the big exciting thing?
Well, no biggie. Colby, my husband, and I just closed on a home yesterday, and we're just like moving stuff and painting and getting stuff figured out in the house this past like couple of days. So I'm like, Friday? Nope, didn't notice that it's Friday because haven't been working. I'm just like high on new house. So there's that. And a little bit ago, I guess in the break time, we were talking about how Dave and I are actually neighbors. I think very much the definition of neighbor, literally down the street. So yeah.
That's so cool.
Right?
Yeah. You guys didn't even know it until just now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. And I think, Kyle, you might want to start thinking about like moving down a little more south.
No, we're never moving.
Oh, whoa, that was fast.
We moved into this house and that was it. Like we are staying here. And
planting roots.
Yes, this is it. I swore up and down I will never move again after our last move.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a big statement. Well, folks, you heard it here. Kyle's never going to move in here.
Yeah. Plus we love this house, and we actually just did a loan yesterday as well. Not nearly as exciting as yours, to finish our basement. So yeah, we finished our backyard a little while ago. We have an unfinished basement, but we are going full steam ahead on getting that done. So it's going to be
Sweet.
super exciting to do all of that, except it's going to be just an absolute ton of work. So not excited about that part, but excited about when it's all done. It'll be lots of fun.
I feel like the updates that we're giving, like this episode has been like the most boring in a very good way, because in previous times we've talked about, I still love the murder bees, murder hornet conversation. And then the earthquake that we had last year, Capitol being raided, all these things like just keep happening, keep giving us materials during this time. And now it's like, oh, great. Boring is good. I hope I didn't just jinx it. So
yeah, I'm knocking quietly on wood.
I don't even know if my desk is real wood or not, so I can't promise. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
Heard it here. I did it. But yeah, it sounds like everyone's doing great. And I am going to try to segue into our topic today. It's an interview, and we already introduced Dave. So Kyle, how should we segue this today?
Yeah. So
you're my backup.
Yeah. Speaking of doing great, welcome again, Dave, to our podcast. It's great to have you here. Yeah. David and I worked together at Health Equity a little while ago, and Dave is the director of UX at Health Equity and helped basically create the UX group at Health Equity. And it was, I'd almost venture to say non-existent until Dave went in there and kind of helped establish it. That might be a little overstatement. I don't know. But I think that's
a little
probably
bit of a stretch, but not much.
Not by much.
I can go into the details a little bit further when we dig into the background part.
Yeah. Anyway, Dave has been in the UX and design industry for a long, long time. So we're really excited to have you here. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about your background and your career history?
Sure, you bet. So as you mentioned, my latest stint really has been here at Health Equity, where I met you originally. And when I started, they actually had 2 UX team members. And at that point in time, they weren't very focused on one specific area. And so my job was to come in and rebuild the team and really establish UX as a presence within Health Equity. And that's something that I think I am doing a pretty good job at. I've been working very closely with product, obviously. Interestingly enough, this is the first time where we have reported as a UX engineer that I've reported through product. So it's been a little bit of a new experience to me. I've usually found myself with an engineering department, but this has been fantastic. And so, as I was mentioning earlier to these guys, today my day started out with being called up and saying, "Hey, we're going to have you report directly to the senior VP of product," which was always it's a nice thing to know that you're having an influence and that people want to hear your voice, and being supported like that by the team has just been fantastic. I started in user experience so long ago that I'm not sure that the other two of you were born yet. Maybe not quite that long ago, but it has been a very, very long time. So I started doing tech support for computers back in 1989. And as I was doing tech support for computers, I started working for a small little company called Prodigy. It was one of kind of the early online national dial-up things. And I was doing tech support for them, and they came to me and said, "Hey, we'd really like you to help kind of design this bulletin board system where we have a whole bunch of people that want to come together and talk." And so that was kind of my very first taste of designing. I didn't really do a whole lot with that, did that, and then moved a little bit more into tech support into a couple other places until I got a job at Primavera, which does project management. And they're the ones that really helped me take off. I got my degree in architecture up at the University of Utah. And when I say architecture, I mean building architecture, not computer architecture. And so Primavera, who actually did project management and construction and project management and architecture all kind of went together, said to me, "Hey, you've got this degree in architecture. we'd really like to see if you could apply that to helping us design our software. So this was back in the Windows 3.1 days.
Wow.
And my first job was to design a wizard to help people make a new project. And project management is not the easiest of fields to start out in. It's a little dry. Nobody likes it. Everybody kind of hates it. And so we did some fun and exciting things and spent the next 3 years competing very directly with Microsoft Project, which I kept telling everybody, listen, our biggest competitor is not Microsoft Project. Our biggest competitor is Microsoft Excel, because everybody would buy Project and it would stay on the shelf and it would become dustware, as we used to call it, because all it did was sit there and gather dust, and then people would just use Excel to really manage their projects. But we did pretty well, and we got some pretty good reviews early on from the trade press back then. And so I stayed with them for about 10 years. They moved me back out to Philly. While we were out in Philly, the web started becoming much more important. So in 1999, we started working on some projects where we could put project management on the web, where we could do some document management on the web. And so that was my first experience working on the web. And it was exciting. It was a brand new era for design. It was people moving away from something that is a little bit, it allowed us to simplify things, really, is kind of what it boils down to. So from there, I moved back to Utah. I got married, and my wife wanted to be close to family, so we moved back to Utah, and I've worked for companies like Landesk, who eventually became Avanti. I've worked for Family Search. I've worked for a company called Gartner. And all of those were just great experiences, and really enjoyed all of them. Really excited to be where I'm at now, though. So that's kind of the thumbnail of my background. But the how things start and how people get into user experience is always, I think, the most interesting part of it. After that, it's a lot of the same thing over and over and over again. And it's starting to change now. Obviously, when I started, nobody went into user experience because they wanted to go into user experience, because nobody knew what user experience was. I was there when Jacob Nielsen and Jared Spool were just, starting to think about all the books that they were going to write and all the influence they were going to have over an industry. It was kind of fun to listen to them as they were figuring out the way they thought. So
wow, this is crazy. I feel like saying like, oh, Dave has been around the block. That's an understatement.
I've been around the block, built the block up, torn the block down, and then built it back up again.
Yep. You're the block developer. You have done it multiple times. That's something that, like you have mentioned, like I feel like I'm so young in the career, like compared to all the history that you have. And I'm very curious, just, I guess we can jump into our first question, which I'm curious, just UX, like you mentioned, like it wasn't really a thing and people were trying to figure out how to make it into a thing. And now we have everyone who wants to be in it. Right. And how has UX design as a practice evolved, like just throughout your career, and you as an observer and practitioner, how has things just changed?
How has it changed? Well, like I said, one of the most interesting things is back when I was doing it, nobody was going to school to become a UX engineer. There just was no training in the schools for this. There was psychology classes that people could take, and so it was always good when you could come across people that had psychology backgrounds, or you ran into people more like me that were more in some design-oriented areas. But there really was no setup for somebody who was interested in really having a career in it to kind of follow. You couldn't just say, oh, well, I want to be a UX engineer, so I'm going to go sign up at the university and see what classes I can take. It's still slower than I wish it was. Still, I really think there should be more master level programs across, especially here in Utah. I wish there was more access to that type of level of training, but it's building, and there's a lot of places that are taking it seriously, and a lot of good content online that you can go and review and really help improve your processes. When I started, it was a lot of by the seat of our pants. We weren't as clear on some of the techniques. I think it was very telling. There was a lot of work that was done back in the digital days. And when I say digital, I mean the company digital, where they were actually doing a lot of research around the user experience. some of the stuff that Hugh Beyer and Keller and Holtzblatt were kind of part of, and that contextual design came out of. And I very quickly gravitated towards that and thought that was probably one of the better ways to really kind of do research and find out what your customers needed. Even, the idea of personas that I think have come and gone 2 or 3 times since I've started. It was brand new then. We knew it from other industries, and so we started trying to apply it into our industry. But it was interesting to see how and understand how the differences really were going to apply. A lot of the information that was, that we were pulling from anthropologists, we were pulling from psychologists, we were pulling from a lot of diverse backgrounds to try and make this really work for us. And we didn't call it user experience back then. And, they haven't settled on a name yet, I don't think. Because I think people are starting to rebel against user experience now. I hear people are looking for product design positions or and so it's interesting to see how that goes. But that's where we started it. And I still think that that's one of the things that I kind of miss in some of the training that I'm seeing nowadays, is it doesn't have some of that background in anthropology that I'd like to see. If we're doing an ethnographic research study, and I say that to somebody in UX, I'd like them to know what that actually means. And that's important. Why would we want to do ethnographic research? Or why do I care about the psychology of how a person interacts with their device? It's a little bit more focused on look and feel. And I've been trying to steer my team a little bit. I mean, I've got some good guys on the team that are really have top-notch eyes, but I like to get into why. And that's always been more interesting to me. So over the years, I started very much as a generalist. Really had to you kind of had to do it all. You had to do your own research. You had to do your own design. You had to understand the code that you were fitting in with. So that all took some time, obviously. Now there's people are starting to understand the value a little bit more, and so they're willing to put more money into it. And so before, where you were maybe one person supporting 200 people, I've got a team of about 6 of us now that are supporting 200 people. So I think that people understand that it can make a big difference to the bottom line and really can help a business improve. And so that's been exciting to see the change as well. We've kind of gone from the lone wolf to, being able to work as a team. But I would say that's how much it's changed over the years. And it swings back and forth between, is it more important to have something look pretty good? I think, Johnny Ives and obviously Apple have had some very, very strong influence in that area. And then I think that, they're starting to see some of the problems that they've had, like the decision to go thinner. Yeah, that's great from a design standpoint, but it led to some usability problems. It's like maybe a longer battery life might be a little bit nicer. Maybe a more solid phone that doesn't bend quite as easily might be nicer. So it's been interesting watching the profession really try and reach a balance between the aesthetics, which are very important, and the usability. And there's a whole bunch of books written about emotional design and how we react to things. And I think it's important to keep in mind. So yeah.
You just spoke about so many things that I want to crack open all the different little boxes because there's just so much that you have just so many topics. And the first one I do want to ask you is that let's start with the easy one. You mentioned It wasn't called user experience before, right? Like how has that terminology changed and what did people call it?
So when I very first started, the groups that I was joining were computer-human interaction groups. Shortly after computer-human interaction, they started calling it HFI, which was human factors interaction. And then after human factors interactions, I think we tried just a while for product designer, and then people kept getting us mixed up with the people that are doing database design and architecture design for the back end on the computer stuff. So they said, well, we can't just call you a designer. And so that's when, and I'm not sure exactly where user experience came from, but I was pretty excited when it came along because it did seem to me to really capture what we were trying to do. We're trying to define an experience where a user can actually be successful and just enjoy what they're doing as opposed to having to slog through something yet again. So.
Right. And for you as a practitioner, I can only imagine like when people didn't understand, and those usually are the people who want you to come in and do, whatever magic you do, right? How has that like when the outsider comes in to ask you to do your magic, like has that changed over time? How has, the outsiders seen your job differently from, back then to now?
For the longest time, people thought that all I did was rearrange the stuff that was on the screen, right? It's like, I think all of us have heard the term lipstick on the pig, right? It was my job to put the lipstick on the pig. How frustrating is that when you look at it and you're like, okay, I see why you have the screen and I see all these things, but if you just made this feature available over on this side, you don't even need this whole screen and the user wouldn't have to do anything at all. I think that's where it's changed a lot, right? We've gone a lot from development coming to us and saying, hey, can you just rearrange this and make this look good on a screen, to people understanding that user experience is not just the aesthetics, because aesthetics is important, as I said, that reaches into the emotional design area, but they also are starting to understand, hey, we need to keep it simpler. We need to keep it more streamlined. We need to assume, developers have always assumed that users are dumb. And it's like, no, they're not dumb. They're busy. They're focused. They have other things going on. They have a dog that's barking. They have a child that's crying. They don't necessarily have time to focus just on what you're trying to make available for them. And even if I'm in an office environment, you have things that are completely distracting you and taking you away from what you're doing. So you have a very fractured interface with them. Being able to get that through to developers has always been the hardest part, but now it's not as hard as it used to be. I think people are starting to understand, it really does matter if it takes longer than 3 seconds for a page to load, because I can't make people wait that long.
Why do you think that is? Why are people more educated nowadays?
Well, I think that fortunately there's been a lot of people that have had very large voices, right? So you have the Jacob Nielsen's that have really made an influence on the industry, obviously. His original book on, the usability for the web, I think surprised a lot of people and they just didn't get it. And now it's easier for us as practitioners to point to a lot of research that's been done. And people are saying, wow, there's actually research that's actually fairly, it's not just brand new research anymore. It's actually been there for a while. And so they can actually really kind of start pointing to that. So I think that makes a difference. And I think all in all, kids, as they're growing up now, they're dealing with the technology more and more. And so they expect it to be simpler and easier and more straightforward. They're the digital natives that we've all been kind of waiting for. But, there's still a lot of us that need a little bit of help here and there. But I think their ability to understand stuff is a little bit higher. And so they're also saying, hey, we expect it to be a lot easier to use. Mm-hmm. You have companies like Google that made search so prevalent. I mean, can you imagine an interface that doesn't have some search of capability now? I don't think that would even fly anymore. So
yeah, that's a very, very good point. And to be honest, like I can't remember like life before Google. Yeah. I have no memories of that. I don't know if you guys remember, but I really don't know how we functioned. Like it really changes your life when one company makes one giant decision that, spills over to all other aspects in life.
Yeah, no, it was exciting when Google came onto the block. I do remember it very vividly. Back then, I was using Alta Vista and Excite as my search engines, and they were okay. They weren't quite as accurate, but you did not have all the knowledge at your fingertips. I mean, you hoarded knowledge like crazy. That's what you would do. Well, that's what I would do, because you needed to be able to have it available because you never knew if you'd be able to search and find it again. Yeah. So Google really kind of did change that.
Yeah. It was the encyclopedia. And when we first got our encyclopedias, I remember as a kid, I would sit just in our living room and just read the encyclopedias. Like I loved them. And there you go. There's your pre-Google. You just had you had books in the library and you would just like go through it and that was it. Not nearly as extensive or as searchable, other than you had to go and find it and hope that it had the information that you needed. And then you'd get the update like once a year of like, here's the things that have come out.
It changed in the last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine nowadays, like how do you do that? How do you do that?
Far too rapid. to hope that you could keep up with something like that.
Yeah, Dave, I'm glad you kind of brought up like the then and then and now. I do want to hear your thoughts on like currently where the industry is at. Do you think we have a good balance? You kind of mentioned like people understand what it is now more, common than before. Do you think right now the industry is at a healthy pace or, moving forward?
I think they're moving in the right direction. I think there's still a lot of help that we need to do as both product and user experience organizations in the wild. I think we just need to help them understand what we're really there for, that we're not there to put the lipstick on the pig. We're there to make your experience a joyful experience. I mean, how much nicer is it to use a software that's been well thought out than to have to figure out how to do your taxes for the 15th time in a different way, right? I mean, if you kind of look at the way TurboTax has changed the way that people file taxes, I'm not saying that I'm a big TurboTax fan now, and we all have issues with different designs that everybody does. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems I think any designer has is like, oh, I would have done that so differently. But if you think about it, if we can take these experiences and make them easier and just, again, bring more joy, I think that's going to make a big difference. And I think that the industry is starting to get that. There are still some people that, and it depends on their exposure, I guess, but there's a lot of people that still think that we're just doing the lipstick on the pig thing. And they'll forget to invite you to meetings about database performance because they're like, why would the UX team care about the database? Well, the UX team cares about the database because you're determining table structure there. And what if I don't want my interface to be in a table? And by the way, how fast are you going to be able to access that information, right? So many times, developers that have been kind of doing this for years and years and years keep forgetting that, hey, we can actually help them understand some things about that. But it's getting better. It really is. And I think it'll continue to get better.
Yeah,
at least that's my hope.
I love what you just brought up because I definitely have moments where I'm like, I sound like I'm crazy to, ask to be there for certain meetings that people are like, wait, what? Why does that matter to you? And then I'm like, well, of course it matters. So
there's no icons on that page. Why do you care?
Exactly. There's no skin on the thing. Why do you care about how the thing works? I'm like, well, that's kind of part of my job too. Anyways, so I love hearing that. And on that note, how would you like to see the industry to change and to continue to evolve? You kind of started talking a little bit about that, but what would be your ideal scenario?
I think it's important that we're understood that it's, and I've been trying to bring this point forward a lot. There's so many benefits that user experience can bring. And this is one of the great things about how I'm working out at Health Equity is we're getting more visibility into the organization. They're actually being able to put that out in front of their customers. I'm putting together a member advisory board and a client advisory board where we're hearing from our customers on a regular basis. This is something that we're going to just continually be able to nurture and grow. And not only does that increase the usability of the product, but it increases your client's ability to say, hey, I'm part of that. It gives them a feeling of ownership. And instead of just being the customer that uses your software, they become the loyal defenders of your product. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what we kind of just need to keep doing is helping organizations understand that we can make the experience a beautiful, wonderful place for these people, and they can get their jobs done. If we can take something that took 2 hours, take 5 minutes, I think about how excited you would be about that. It's like, I would use that product the rest of my life. And so I think understanding how to communicate that out to the different organizations, which I think is becoming better and better. The higher placement within organizations, I think, is becoming better and better. I know several places have started looking at having chief experience officers, right? How can that really impact the business? And the fact of the matter is we can help you improve your sales. If you're losing sales because something is hard to use, who else would you turn to except for the user experience group? They're the ones that are going to want to be able to do that. So anyway, that's where I would like to see us is just have a larger presence at the table and help them understand how we can really, it from a business side, it's a great thing. And from a user side, it's a win-win is what I think it boils down to. But I think as organizations, we need to kind of help communicate that out.
I think that's awesome. Shifting gears a little bit. So we talked a little bit about this at the very beginning and I wanted to get your take on it. So you've helped establish or help reestablish, the UX team at Health Equity, and kind of help build that up and help create UX as an organization there. Generally speaking, how do you go about creating a good UX organization? And then what are some of the things that you've been doing there and have done or seen at other places to really create a good UX team and a good UX culture and make that a successful thing where, you're not only getting a seat at the table, but you're really helping to drive design as a function at the company forward?
Sure. One of the things that is really critical is being able to make sure that you have a good champion for you. That's one of the things that I've been very lucky about with any organization I go to, is that those champions have been willing to broach some organizational bridges that I wasn't yet able to bridge. If you're moving into an organization that doesn't have a champion besides you, that's going to be very, very difficult. I've been very fortunate that I've always had someone that's interested. And typically by the time that they're looking for a UX person, you're going to have someone else that's there to help you championship. But once you actually have that champion and once you get hired, the process of building the team is finding people that can work well together, that have really great empathy, and that can support each other. That is the one thing that I've always focused on my teams. I am willing to work with interns. I'm willing to work with senior level people as long as they have the empathy and understand that we're all working towards the same goal. And once we can get them centered on the goal of, listen, our members are important. This is what we are focused on, and this is why we're doing what we do. It's much easier to get the team to do what you need them to do. They're much more likely to support any ideas that we have to help the organization if we can do that. I enjoy a lot. One of my favorite things to do is to bring on interns and to help them understand what the industry is like and to really mentor them through that process. And it's gotten to the point where the people that I hire, I've hired a lot of people that I know at Health Equity. They know what I'm looking for them to do. And so they'll actually also help mentor the internship. And having people just willing to help out like that, I think that's what makes your team so much stronger. If you're only relying on one person to help build that, you're not going to succeed very well. You really need somebody else there to just kind of support the whole team. And it's important to have a lot of diversity. That's the other thing that I've always tried to focus on, is because if you don't have diversity, you're not going to have a great idea of how that user base is going to think, right? If everybody looks and acts just like me, then we're going to deliver something that's for me. And that's not what we're supposed to do. I have a mug that says, I am, know thy target user. It is not you, right? I've had that mug for about 15 years now. It's been dropped a couple times. It's got some cracks, but it's so important for me to remember that, because, it's so easy to try and think, oh, yep, this is how I would use it. But there are so many people out there that have so many divergent points of view. That's one of the reasons I like hiring young people, as well as having access to some older people, because it really helps to have that diversity of feedback, both male and female, and both different cultures, right? All of that is, I think, just critical in having a successful team.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And we've talked a little bit about that too, where if you don't have that, then you end up making even unintentionally some mistakes at times, and it can be difficult. And speaking of that, what are some of the biggest difficulties or challenges that you faced, either in building teams or in helping to establish kind of design and UX within an organization?
The first thing I think that is sometimes the hardest is getting the respect of the other people that you're working with. Not everyone is immediately open to saying, hey, yeah, we need to have UX there, right? So you need to be able to make sure that you can develop a certain level of respect with people. I know that that's probably the number one problem that I still have with some of my younger designers, as they're working with these developers that are typically the groups in development are not quite as diverse as the groups on my team, for example. And so there have been some times when the developers are like, well, that was just a suggestion from somebody. It doesn't really matter. But then when I come in and say it, they're like, oh, yeah, we'll do that right away. That's a problem. And that's one of those areas where I'm like, no, listen, if I have this individual that's on my team who I trust and who I've assigned to this and knows this product very well, and they suggest something, I expect you to pay just as much attention to them, whoever they are, as you would to me. I mean, people look at me and I've got gray hair and I'm obviously a little old, and, and so they kind of give me this respect that I think the people on my team deserve just as much as I do. Yes, I've seen a little bit more around the block. Yes, I've seen some problems that maybe the people on my team haven't seen, but that doesn't mean that they don't know what our user base is trying to accomplish. So I think that's probably one of the number one things, is getting them to respect the team. Once you build that respect, it becomes much easier. There are still some teams that I'm struggling with that even today, where I really wish that they understood that the person that they've got is actually really good at what they're doing, has received all this backup from not only me, but the people farther up the chain that just love her designs, and yet they don't seem to be able to accept it. It's interesting, but that's probably the one thing I would break it down to, is if you're not getting the respect, it's going to be really hard to break your way and into that organization and make a difference.
Wow. I really love what you said. Kind of empowering your team through like this very upfront like interaction too. And I mean, I'm confident that this is not limited to, what we do, but just any leadership position. Like, that's so good to hear. I really, really love that. And thank you for saying that.
Going along those same lines, for those starting out in UX, and for those bringing on, you talked about mentoring and bringing on some of those young interns and young individuals. What would you say is either some of the most important things to do, or the most important thing for a young person starting out in UX to do right now to help them in their career as they kind of begin in design?
Yeah, there's two things that I really look for when I'm hiring someone brand new and that is just breaking into the industry. It's hard to look at their portfolios. You need to have a portfolio of some kind, obviously, and so they really need to be working on their portfolio. But there's two things that I really expect my interns to really kind of look at. One thing is empathy, right? And we kind of touched on this before. If I can't hire someone who has empathy, and that doesn't mean that you necessarily believe or feel the exact same way as the person that you're representing, but you need to understand how they feel, and you need to be able to convey that to somebody else. And so if you're having problems with empathy, I think it's important that you learn as much as you can about empathy. The second part I would say that you really need to improve is your visual vocabulary, right? So when we're learning to talk and when we're going to school, that's one of the things that they help you do, is they help you build a vocabulary, right? We're taught from the very beginning of grade school how to express ourselves. And the better you can express yourself, the better you're going to be. In user experience, it's much the same way. They need to build a visual vocabulary. And that's actually why the portfolio is important, because you can start seeing if they have a diverse visual vocabulary, or if they only understand one type of language, right? And so if I can actually see that they're starting to have a good visual vocabulary, and if they can build that visual vocabulary, and I'm not going to say this is my finding, by the way. Visual vocabulary is something they taught me about in architecture school, right? And they tell you when you're trying to design buildings, yes, eventually you want to be able to come up with something new, something that you've, kind of come up with. But the fact of the matter is you don't do that by ignoring everything that has come before you. You need to know what has come before you. And you need to know all of the different things that have come before you so that you can react to it or change it or understand where its failings were so that you can improve on it. If you can have really, really good empathy and really, really good visual vocabulary, that's going to be much more interesting. The nice thing is starting in UX has never been easier. There are so many programs out there. I would be very leery of boot camps that tell you that you can be a UX person in 3 weeks. I've had some difficulties with people that thought that the boot camps gave them everything that they needed to know about UX. I don't think they do a good job of introducing the topic to you, but I don't think they get you there. But there's plenty of great programs online. If you go to edX or if you go to Coursera or any of those, there's actually really good university programs that you can look at and do online and learn from if there's not something in your immediate area. So I would encourage you to do that. There's a certain amount of education I think that you do need to have, because you do need to be able to understand, like kind of earlier, like I was saying, what is ethnographic research? Why is ethnographic research important? Somebody just asked me the other day, someone who just graduated from their program, and said, they were asking me what kind of research I do. And I said, well, I tend to lean towards the ethnographic research, specifically contextual design, as it was kind of hammered out by Hugh Beyer and Karen Holzblatt. And they're like, who, what, when? And that's one of those things where you need to be able to say, yeah, here, this is important. You kind of need to understand what's been going on in the industry as well. And there's enough stuff online. I mean, pages and pages and pages and pages of stuff. Not all of it's good, but there's a lot out there. And I think it's important to understand all of it, even the stuff that you don't agree with.
I love everything you just said. And I feel like I keep saying that, but there's one thing I do want to dive into a little bit more is when you talked about earlier, finding someone that has empathy, right? Then they can design for more than just themselves. How do you look for that in an interview or even through a portfolio?
It's really hard to do it in a portfolio. If all you're going to do is show me a portfolio, I'm going to have a hard time testing that, right? Or even looking at that. The interviews I have, I'll do a call screening just by myself, and I'll see how that goes. And I'll ask them questions about, hey, tell me about times where you had to do this, or where you were in this type of situation, and how did you respond? And so having those types of interactions can help you understand how they might interact in a similar situation from a software standpoint. But also, I like to get them in a group, and I like to see how they interact in the group, because when you're in a group, it's very easy to tell when they're uncomfortable with somebody. Right? Maybe they're comfortable with everybody in the group except for one person, and they don't pay attention to that person. And so typically I'll bring them into the group interview, and I'll just kind of sit back and watch and let the group kind of interact with the person so that I can kind of see how that's going. And I watch the expressions on their face. I watch how they're interacting. I try and make sure that I see if they have disdain for a certain question, or, we used to joke, one of our favorite questions to ask is Marvel or DC, which I frankly don't care one way or the other. I'm, comic books galore, please. I love them all. But it would always be interesting to see why they would say something like that, and to see if they were insulted by the question. Because I've had people just flat out be insulted. It's like, why are you even asking me something so trivial on an interview? And it's like, well, because in user experience, more than any other, you need to be able to just get into anybody's shoes and understand kind of what they're thinking. And if I ask you Marvel or DC and you're offended by it because you think, then you're going to be offended by other things too, right? That you think are going to be beneath you. And I don't want to have someone that thinks anybody's beneath them. I want everybody to feel like they can understand. So it seems like a silly question in an interview, and it certainly is a comedic break in an interview, because let's face it, when you're being interviewed by a group, that's really hard. But it also really does. It's what exposes, I think, most, whether they're empathic or not.
I think that's such an interesting point and such a good tip for like folks that are looking for jobs right now in interviews. It's such an art. And also for us, like people that are interviewing people, we only have like half an hour sometimes, and full hour to get to know you. And like what you mentioned just now, like if you're just flipping tables, it's like, oh, whoa. It makes it hard to, see the good in your answer if you're already like, oh, don't want to do this. Has anyone really tell you like, oh no, I don't want to answer, this is such a, whatever question, anything like that?
No, I have had people that have said, that's, I have no respect for anybody that even thinks about Marvel or DC. I note it, and depending on how the rest of the interview went, it's okay if they're not pro Marvel or pro DC or even pro comics. That's not the point of the question. The point is just to see the reaction a lot. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of people that have less than empathic responses. I've seen people that cringe when, someone that looks like they're the junior member on the team and who they think that they're definitely going to be senior over asks them a question. It bothers them. And it's like, I don't need a person like that on my team, right? If the only thing that you can see is the hierarchy of the team and you're letting that affect your interview, that's a problem. And I'm not going to be able to build a strong, cohesive team with that.
Yeah. And dear listeners, if you know anyone who's going to be interviewing a health equity with Dave, tell them, listen to this episode. There's so much good in this episode. But yeah, any other interview tips for people that are, going to look for jobs or going into interviews?
Be genuine, be passionate, and let it come through. Passion is so important. That is always one of my default questions. What's your passion project that you're working on? What is that one thing that you're doing on your own? This podcast is a great example of that, right? What a great passion this is. I looked into doing podcasting. I realized how much work it is. And I have a whole bunch of questions about, the software that you're using to edit it. And, are you using OBS and what are you doing for your ins and outs? And do you have an amplifier? And a whole bunch of questions. But the fact of the matter is that's not where my passion is. But you guys are doing a great job. And so your passion is showing through. And so that's why I like to see these passion projects. I like to hear about these passion projects. So to me, that's one of the most important things is, are you passionate? Do you really want to do this? Or are you doing this? I get so many people that come in and say, well, hey, this is, I was going to be a designer, as in, a graphic designer, but man, I understand that UX makes about 3 times as much as a graphic designer. Well, are you in it just for the money or are you in it to help the individuals, right? And that's, I think, the biggest question. Because if you're just in it for the money, it's not going to be a great job for you. I can tell you that right now. It's going to get old very quick.
Yeah, the money helps, but
money helps. We all need money to survive. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
And I'm always glad when my next raise comes. But the fact of the matter is I don't do it for the money. I really do it because being able to talk for the users is my passion. That is the thing that gets me up in the morning and gets me excited. And if you talk to me right after I spent time talking to a user, you can tell there's just a difference in the way that I'm carrying myself because it's like, oh my gosh, this is the best job I've ever had. So.
Has there been one experience in your career that you were getting that super rewarding, feeling ground level? Can you share with us any story like that?
Absolutely. So, there's been a bunch of different places in my career where I've been pretty lucky to work with some really exciting teams. I've worked, I mentioned earlier when I worked with Primavera Project Planner, I'm going to talk about some magazines that no longer exist and that probably nobody remembers, but we were winning the Windows 100 award every year for project management. We were winning the Ziff Davis awards every year for project management. And so we were doing great. That was great when my career was starting because I was like, wow, this is really exciting. We can make a difference in a lot of lives. Unfortunately, they killed the project because it was a $600 product and they had a $3,000 product that was not as easy to use, but everybody was choosing to use our product because it was just as good and easier to use. And so they killed the project. But and then I had another situation where I joked that I helped win CES. I actually say, oh yeah, I won CES that year. So Sling TV, when they first came out, I try and take credit for that. But the fact of the matter is it wasn't me, it was the team. And, I joke about that. But truthfully, the time that I think that I've made the biggest difference is I've worked on a product called Family Search. And working at Family Search, while it wasn't the most financial, I didn't get paid the most of that job, but it sure was satisfying because it was helping people find connections in their lives in a way that I'd never really done before. I mean, all the work that I had done up to that point in my career was really helping a bunch of IT professionals be able to do their job better, which is great. And I loved it. But when I got to work at Family Search and helping people do their genealogy, that was my favorite time in my career. It was fantastic. And I would walk home, and sometimes I look back and I'm going, why the heck did I leave that again? And ultimately it was because I needed just a little bit more money. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. And I was being offered a director job somewhere else. So, but as far as being able to make a difference in a lot of people's lives, Family Search has over 1 million hits a day, and we really were making it a lot better. So that's probably the most exciting moment I've had in my career.
Wow. Those are those are really, really cool. Family Search, if people who are listening, or if you're not familiar with it, that is it's an absolute great product that I think a lot of people love, and it's getting better all the time. So I think the UX on it used to be terrible a long time ago. And so Dave, thank you for one. I think it's improved massively over time. And a lot of people love it. Being able to like find family, it's like family history type stuff. If you're into family history, like it's cool stuff, like be able to see like your just things from your past. Very, very neat things. And then you won CES. I Googled it real quick in 2015. Sling TV won CES in 2015. Yeah. And you were part of that. Yeah. I would brag the heck out of that. If I had worked on a product that won CES, I don't think I would be humble about it. So,
well, the fact of the matter is I really have to give more credit to the team. They worked so damn hard on it. They wanted so much help, and it was one of those experiences where the team was just like, they were just thirsting for like, what can you help us do? How can we make this better? How can we make this better? And we'd have testing, we'd bring in a tester, and we'd actually have the whole team there, the whole dev team there, and they'd watch, and they'd, when they started feeling the pain that the users were feeling, it made quite a difference. And there was a lot of changes that came after this as well, and a lot of better changes. And but the fact of the matter is the team won CES. I was there to, kind of shepherd it through that particular part of the day. But in the end, it wasn't me, it was the team. So that's why I joke about it. But usually in my interview when I'm negotiating salary is when I joke about it.
Pro tip. That is a pro tip, everybody. If you have anything you want to brag about, make sure you mention it. It definitely helps to make you memorable, right? At least.
Yeah. But the fact of the matter is I do try and tone it down, because the team, they were just incredible. And I don't deserve any of the credit compared to what they did.
Well, that is very, very cool. A lot of cool things.
Yeah, I really feel like this episode, I feel like I'm going to school. Like just every minute.
I'm not sure that's good or bad.
That is great. Like I would love to have you back, like, I don't know, 10 more episodes. Kyle, does that sound great? Because it sounds great to me. And I know I'm going to be your neighbor, so I will see you around for sure.
You can just come over and knock on the door and say, Dave, we've got this problem. Can you help us out with this?
Don't joke about that, because I think I really will show up on your porch, and don't be surprised when that happens. And when that happens, and I do want to, ask you a couple of questions that is not work related. Outside of design, UX, building teams, and all the great things that you're doing, what else do you like to do in life?
So that has been something that I've been actually struggling with a little bit since the pandemic started, right? I think we all had to kind of take a new look at what we were doing with our lives. And so I decided to start looking into, I don't know if you've heard of bushcrafting. It's basically camping, but on steroids a little bit. And so it's, people who go out and they'll cut down the trees and build the temporary shelters. And and so it's lots of fun. If you Google bushcrafting on YouTube, you'll find it. It's a little bit uncomfortably close to prepping for me. I'm not a prepper, just to make sure that's clear. I really like the camping and being outdoors part. I've taken up whittling and really enjoy whittling. But those are the things that I've been kind of getting into lately, and I've been starting to play with and trying to. People that have been on my Instagram account lately know that that's actually. I started taking pictures of all the little gadgets, and I think that's probably why I like it. Is I like the gadgets. I'm a gadget guy. I think Kyle can talk about that. I was always the guy with all the gadgets on their desk at work. So always trying the latest wireless headphones. You talk about it. If you want to talk about tech gadgets, so for example, I can tell you about the Jabra headset that Kyle's wearing. That is the Jabra headset, right?
It is, yeah. Yep.
I've owned that. Loved it. That's why I was asking about the mic earlier, and I was easily able to identify your microphone. It's just, if it's electronic and it's gadgetry, I love it. I've tried just about every type of earless or truly wireless earbud out there just to see which ones I like and which ones I don't like. I've had all versions of the Sony MHX series, basically the competing one to what Kyle's got on his head. I've had the Jabra Elites, the little wireless ear things, but it's not just that. I mean, I also love iPads and playing with my iPad. I'm sure that you've started playing with the iPad and the pencil, I would imagine by now, Eva.
Yeah. Yep.
And how much fun that is with Procreate and those types of, and I just love those types of gadgets. And we have 3 people in the house, and I think I've got 6 iPads. There's a problem. If it's tech gadgetry, in fact, when you move in and you find out that you need a new cable or something, just come over. I'm sure I have it.
Sweet. You heard it here, guys. You heard it here.
Yeah. You need to run some Ethernet cable. I can help you run Ethernet cable. That's just what I do.
I want to say that all 3 of us here probably are tech people that love technology and just want to consume it as much as we can in whatever form we can. And my husband just talked about, because I just got a new computer, and then he's like, oh, I think I need one too. I'm like, oh, you need one now? Like, why? And then it just I don't know.
Did you get one of the new M1 Macs? Is that what you got?
That's what he wants. He wants the MacBook Air with the M1 chip.
I can't. So I actually got it and then returned it. But I would highly recommend it. Yeah. The only reason I returned it is because I really couldn't justify having it. I've got 4 computers on my desk already. And I was like, where am I even going to fit this into my workflow? I can't fit it into my workflow. And at $1,800, it was just a little bit more than I, could justify. But it is a beautiful device. And the fact that it's never there's no fans. It's quiet forever. And it was every bit, I couldn't believe Safari on that device. It was amazing.
I can hear the passion in your voice, and I want to ask, do you have a YouTube channel that you review all these gadgets and stuff?
No, I should, but yeah, I don't.
Then your hobby will kind of pay itself off with, the money from that channel. That's what people do nowadays, right?
I've often thought about that. It's like, really, I mean, if people knew how many gadgets I've reviewed, yeah. So.
Yeah. When you're ready, we'll plug your channel in our show notes and everything. So let us know. We look forward to that.
I sure will.
But yeah,
if that ever happens, again, there is some passion there, but I don't. I know what it takes, man. What you guys do is not easy.
Kyle's the driver in this operation. I'm in the passenger seat.
Yes, but you're the ones coming up with questions, and that's just I'm always impressed by how they choose to follow their passion.
The internet has shown us just all kinds of ways to be really cool, and I'm still trying to figure out, am I doing enough as a person? Like, everyone's doing so much, but that was a great answer.
Building a personal brand is not for the weak. It is definitely not for the weak. It takes a lot of self-promotion, which I'm getting to the point where I don't need to toot my own horn that much. It's like I would rather just do my job.
Hey, listen, if anyone don't know you, just tell them to listen to this episode. I think anyone can say that you have, again, been around the block multiple times, build it, taking it down, build it again. And really, thank you so much for being here with us. I really think this is a great episode. And I know this is a perfect timing to segue into our last question, which is our favorite part of the episode, when we either shout out products we love or products that we don't love. Who wants to go first? Kyle, do you have any strong shout out or gripe?
So nothing too strong, but it's funny that Dave, he kind of referenced it. I actually started using OBS a bit over the past couple of weeks, not for our podcast, but to do like video and screen recording. And it has been just been great. Like, so it's one, it's free. And two, it's been super easy to use. I've been using it for, I didn't know.
Yeah. It's got a couple different forks that are not free, but OBS itself is free. It hasn't been very. Let's just say that the latest iteration, Kyle, is what's gotten it to be to the point where it's as user friendly as it is and as stable as it is. Because it's been a lot of time not as stable as is needed for a lot of people, but the current iteration is doing much better.
Dave, do you stream or how do you use OBS?
No.
How do you know these things?
I research these things because, like Kyle said, it's one of those areas where if you're going to do testing of users, and what you want to do is you want to be able to start being able to bring in a camera that's looking at the keyboard, a camera that's looking at the face of the user, while displaying the screen of what they're looking at, so that if you're showing it to somebody, if you're creating a highlight reel, they can see what the reaction on the face, because sometimes people will tell you, oh no, I get that, right? But the expression on their face 3 seconds before they say the speaks volumes. And so being able to see what they're seeing on the screen at the same time as their face, at the same time as their hands, and being able to handle multiple video feeds like that at the same time, and the audio feed from both the computer and from the user and from the interviewer, it's just critical to have software that will be able to support that type of stuff. So OBS is where we've been actually. I've been encouraging Julie to start looking into that kind of stuff, because actually that's something that I'd like to start using much more in our day to day as well. So that's exciting that you're starting to use it like that already, Kyle.
Yeah. So have started to use it. I'm not as familiar with some of the older iterations of it, so I haven't had any poor experiences with it, but it's been very, very useful for some of my personal use, and then some of just what we're doing or starting to do in some of our products use. So it's been good so far, and have been excited to use it for some of that. So good things to say about it. I recorded like a couple like product videos earlier today, which was really good. And that's gonna hopefully do some like other product testing and things like that. But anyway, shout out to that. It's been useful so far.
Dear CEO of OBS or whatever team that is listening that builds OBS, sponsor us. But I am the hater of the group, I feel like, because every time there's an 80% chance I come in with a gripe. I have one word, and I don't know how much more I need to explain. One word: Robinhood.
Oh boy.
I don't want to do my podium 3 hours speech about why Robinhood is not a good friend right now, but I think everyone kind of knows about GameStop and everything. It's all over the news, all over the internet. But yesterday I was sitting at home. I was just thinking like, this is really bad. And I was thinking like, what is their product team doing right now? Can you imagine working a normal Thursday and then just having to go to 30 different meetings to talk about your product? And then there's just so much power in your product, and also the decisions you make and all the external factors that play into your product. But just that's my gripe.
There's the gripe. And,
yep.
And
that's a good gripe.
That is a good gripe.
Big gripe, right? Everyone's griping on this.
Everyone, yeah. So the counter shout out to that is to Reddit.
Yes, love Reddit.
So here's the interesting thing, and I think this probably. I agree that the current place where Robinhood seems to be a problem, but there's a reason they got there. Because if you think about what people could do up to this point as far as doing any trading in a retail environment at all, it was so difficult. And if you look at what they've done is from a usability aspect and how they can make it in their app and how it's easier to use. That's the thing that's so frustrating, is because part of me wants to champion Robinhood as one of the greatest pieces of software that's come along, because it's taken something that literally was only allowed to those people that had millions of dollars and given them capability. Unfortunately, as we're finding out, the people that use the app are not the customers. The people that use the app are the people, their information is being sold, and that's too bad. And, it's kind of like Google. Google is the same way. All of a sudden, we've been using Gmail and we love it, and we've gotten so used to it and so entrenched in it, and so now it's hard to get out of. And it's sad when user experience is used for ill.
Yep.
Because they really did something special there when they put it together. Unfortunately, the intentions behind it were not what they should have been, which is too bad.
I agree, especially if you name your app Robinhood and it's not for the people. Like, it's kind of, okay. You kind of set up the perfect, meme there for yourself, and it's unfortunate. Yeah, but I agree with you. That accessibility that wasn't there before, like for just as normal, common people, that's incredible thing. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I've used a couple of their competitors, and I have used E-Trade to manage some of my other stocks, and it just wasn't as simple and straightforward. And so it's sad that this has come. I actually had a couple of things in Robinhood, and I was like, I guess it's time to see if there's something else out there that I can use. So, should I talk about products that I'm in love with?
Yeah, we definitely have to hear yours, because you, I think, are the most. It sounds like you have got some serious experience. So I'm excited.
So I don't know that I have serious experience. I am in love with the truly wireless earbud concept. To me is so incredible. I didn't understand it. It's like, well, how bad can it be to have a wire draped around your neck, or how bad is it? And to have the extra freedom, it just kind of has blown me away. I've tried a lot of the different ones and tried to figure out how they are. I mean, everybody kind of has to figure out the ones that fit in their ears. Like Apple stuff will never fit in my ears, as much as, I like Apple just fine, but for whatever reason, their idea of biology in my ears don't mix. So, I've played a little bit with the Jabras. I love the Jabra Elites. They're really, really nice. I really love the Sonys. They have great sound. Both of those are pretty expensive. And so there's also some that are on the lower end that, I've tried as well. So there's a company, I think everybody's familiar with Anchor from their USB cables.
Yep.
But they also have a subsidiary called Soundcore, and they have some truly wireless earbuds that are really, really good. There's another company called One More that makes some really fantastic. I love their noise canceling headphones. They've been fantastic for me. In fact, when I get off this call, I actually have to go find in my bed where I lost one of my headphones last night, because I tend to listen to audiobooks before I go to sleep. I love consuming audiobooks as I'm drifting off, and it kind of fell off my ear last night for a change. And it was the first time it's happened in a while. So, but truly wireless earbuds are truly incredible. And so if you can find one that fits your ears and that you like the sound of, I couldn't recommend them more.
We are big fans on the show, and the Jabra Elite, those are my big, I'm a huge fan. Yeah. This is 75. Nice. 75T for me. I've been thinking serious about upgrading to the 85, but I have literally no reason to at this point. Like, I've been really happy with the 75. So
yeah, I think the 75s are actually the only reason I could see to move to the 85T is because I thought about it briefly, but I really don't need wireless charging on my earbuds. That's not something that I really need. And that's really the only thing that I saw that the 85T kind of brought to the table. In fact, I think they're a little less waterproof. And so
I know I have a very low demand of what my headphones need to do. Hearing everything you guys just mentioned, but yeah, that makes sense. I never thought about wireless charging for that either. Wireless charging has never been a thing that I asked for, but it's a big thing that a lot of people like. But yeah, I'm glad that we end on a happy note. I knew mine was going to be a hater thought, but again, thank you so much, Dave, for sharing with us just all the nuggets of knowledge and wisdom that you had shared with us today. Anywhere that people can follow you or anything you want to plug?
I really don't have much to plug. On Twitter, I am at SundiverDB. At Instagram, I'm at SundiverDB. I can't imagine that it would be that exciting to follow, but those are my two. Those are the two social media things that I do. And I used to have my side company that I would run, and I'd point people to that, but I just haven't been doing that at all lately. So I've no real reason to point anybody towards that. So
I'm following you right now on Twitter, so you'll get one follower at least from here. But yeah, thank you so much. I think this is the episode. Kyle, anything to add? Dave, any last words?
No, this has been great. Thank you so much. It has been a great discussion.
It's been my pleasure. I really enjoy talking about it.
Yeah. Well,
thank you so much, everybody. And this is it. Goodbye.
See ya. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans. And you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time.